Today we are going to find all of the zeros of a polynomial. Basically in section 4.5, we never had imaginary solutions. Now we might have imaginary solutions. So we're going to do basically the same thing that we've been doing. Our first step is always going to be how many solutions are there potentially going to be. This one will have the potential for 5 solutions. The positive solutions come from the number of sign changes. And over the years, this is the thing that apparently has been the most difficult for people, is counting the number of sign changes. And it seems like it should be super simple, but for some reason it just doesn't click. So, is this first term positive or negative? Positive. It's positive. So we're starting positive. This next term is positive. The next term is negative. That's a change. This one is still negative. And this term is still negative. So we changed from positive to negative once and stayed negative. That means one sign change. That means one possible negative or one possible positive solution. The number of sign changes always tells you the number of positive solutions. How do we figure out the number of negative solutions? It's the rest of them. So there's one positive. How many negatives? 4. Or 2 or 0. Because Descartes' rule of signs has that weird little thing where it says or less by 2. So if there's 4, there could be 4 or 2 of them or 0 of them. Now, we are going to have the potential for imaginary solutions now. So there is a chance that there will be 0 negative solutions because all of the negative solutions are actually going to be imaginary. So which one should we test? Positive. We definitely want to test our positives because we are guaranteed to get one positive solution. The possible solutions come from the constant number. Our constant number is 8. Ways to multiply to get 8. We can do 1 times 8 or 2 times 4. So we're going to test positive 1, positive 2, positive 4, positive 8. Hopefully we get the solution before we get to positive 8. Okay, that's kind of like the pre-work that you need to do. Now the actual work of testing. Let's test positive 1 using synthetic division. Warning. We have to check for missing terms before we do synthetic division. If we're starting with x to the 5th, we would need an x to the 4th. So there's a 0x to the 4th hiding in here. That matters when we do synthetic division. So we have 1x to the 5th, 0x to the 4th, 1x to the 3rd, negative 2x squared, negative 12x, and negative 8. This synthetic division is a little bit longer than what we've done the past few days. Multiply and add, multiply and add, multiply and add. Usually when I get to here, I can tell if we're going to end up with 0. Are we going to end up with 0 on this one? No. 1's no good. Let's try 2.
How do you know when you test positives or negatives?
Woohoo! Okay, we got 2 as a solution. That means x minus 2 goes in the factored form. If your solution is positive 2, x minus 2 was in that factored form. And this stuff is going to become the next set of parentheses. Since we originally started with x to the 5th, and we've taken one of those x's out with this x minus 2, this 1 in our synthetic division refers to 1x to the 4th plus 2x to the 3rd plus 5x squared plus 8x plus 4. So I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is we're on our way to finding all of our answers. The bad news is we're going to have to do the whole testing process again. So we're going to save the 0 equals x minus 2 for later. And now we're just looking at this highlighted part. There's the potential for 4 solutions. Count the sign changes. All of these terms are positive. That means there are 0 sign changes. So there are going to be 0 positive solutions, which means there's 4 or 2 or 0 negative solutions. We're really hoping that it's 4 or 2 and not 0. But should we test positives or negatives here? Definitely negatives. We definitely want to test the negatives. And our solutions are going to come from this 4. So 1 times 4 or 2 times 2. Good news is we only have 3 possible numbers to test. So we are going to test -1, -2, and -4. Hopefully we get some answers before then. So let's test -1. And this time it's 1, 2, 5, 8, 4. Woohoo! Got our solution first time. Okay. We have 0 equals x minus 2. The x minus 2 comes from our very first solution that we found. We also have a solution of x of -1, so x plus 1 goes in there. And this stuff is going to become the next set of parentheses. We have 1x to the 3rd this time, plus x squared, plus 4x, plus 4. We now need to factor again, or there is the potential that you would have to do this process again. If you did have to do this process a 3rd time, I would definitely expect some sort of curse word like, I don't know, dagnabbit or pickle written on the paper. But I think this one will factor if we factor by grouping. When you have 4 terms, you can try to factor by grouping. And just looking at these terms, it looks like it's going to factor by grouping. Do you see how the first 2 look really similar and the second 2 look really similar? So the first 2 have x squared in common. The second 2 have 4 in common. If your 2 sets of parentheses match, factor by grouping worked. So we have 0 equals x minus 2, x plus 1, x squared plus 4, x plus 1. We have to find the solutions. So we're factored. It is factored. Now the solution, but the solutions are the easy part, right? This one gives us the solution of +2. This one gives us a solution of -1. Let's skip over that one. This one gives us the solution of -1. To figure out the solution for that x squared term, we would do x squared plus 4 equals 0. Subtract 4 on both sides. How do you get rid of x squared? Square root. When you put a square root in, you have to put a plus minus in front of it. Now think about the square root of -4 is the square root of -1 times the square root of 4. What's the square root of 4? 2. and the square root of negative 1 is I. So this is plus or minus 2I. Now, on a test or a quiz, this type of problem, there would be a bunch of possible answers listed, and you'll have to click all of the answers that are solutions. So really, the solutions here are negative 1. Negative 1 is a solution twice, but you only would have to like click it once. 2 is a solution. Positive 2I and negative 2I. There are technically 5 solutions here, but negative 1 just happens to be a solution more than once. So it's included in that grouping. And now we are done. X equals negative 1, 2, positive 2I, and negative 2I. Okay, on your own, I want you to change number 2 to this problem and try to do this whole process by yourself. Once you're done, or when you think you're stuck, play the video and check yourself. I'll try to show all of my work on here. 4 solutions. There are 1, 2, 3 sign changes, and Descartes' rule of signs does apply here as well. So there's 3 positive or 1 positive solution. 3 plus 1 is 4, so there's the chance for 1 negative. Because neither of these are 0, you can test either. You can choose if you want to test positives or negatives. I tested positives, and at 3 I got a solution. Factor by grouping. Remember how to solve this thing. Your solutions are 3, 3i, negative 3i, and negative 2.